Welcome to the Solar Energy Channel, where you'll get an honest inside look at everything solar. In this video, we're going to talk about the ITC for solar and how it relates to the new Inflation Reduction Act that has just passed the Senate and will possibly pass the House in the coming days or weeks. Just real quick preface, this video is not intended to be political in any way. And the information that we're going to share is just our understanding of where the bill stands now, our understanding of the content in that bill. All of this could change. It probably will get amended when it goes to the House. It could fall apart. Things could change. All we're going to be discussing in this video is our understanding of the bill as it stands right now today on August 10th. I'm Warren Miller, and with me today I have a very special guest, Dale Good, our president and CEO, who's going to help us get a good understanding of where things are and how it impacts you as the customer. So Dale, let's start off. Welcome, Dale, first of all.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Let's start off and just, if you could, give our customers and our viewers an understanding of what the ITC is now currently without the Inflation Reduction Act passing.
Sure. So the investment tax credit, which we call the ITC, has been around for years. It's been extended a number of times, and it has recently stepped down. This year it was 26%. Next year it was slated to go to 22%, and previously it had been 30%. I think the one thing that I'll mention here, at the risk of confusing people, is that there are actually two bills, one that governs residential projects for solar and one that governs commercial. And so it's important that as we roll forward, even with the new bill, it's a little bit hard to tell at times which tax act they're talking about and whether the changes would apply to both. My suspicion is that they won't, based on what I've read to this point. But for simplicity's sake, the ITC currently is 26 and is slated to go to 22 if nothing were to happen with this bill, if this bill were just to fall apart.
What are the major changes that are proposed in the Inflation Reduction Act?
Yeah, so they're pretty significant, actually. It would be nice to say that it's just going to go from 26 to 30. That's an easy way to define it. That is kind of the case for certain size projects that are less than a megawatt AC, and there's a difference between AC and DC, but less than a megawatt AC, they would be kind of grandfathered into the current rules, and it would just go to 30%. And so that's a nice win. I mean, you're going to gain 4% on the total cost of the project. On larger projects, there are other rules that apply, and it actually starts. The ITC is actually a built number in the new bill. It starts at 6%, and then it goes up to 30% based on the apprenticeship requirements that are on the bill, and also the prevailing wage requirements. And to get to the 30, you have to meet those. In addition, there are some bonus ITC numbers, 10% for using domestic product, a certain percentage. There's a 10% for going onto like a brown field or places like that. And there's a 20% in the low income areas that have been designated. So you could actually, potentially, you could get, on larger projects, you could get up to 70% ITC. That's going to be really unusual and hard to get to, but there will be projects that will get to that. So that's a major change. I mean, from where we were before. The other piece about it is the 30%, at least the 30%, is going to be retroactive to January 1 of 2022. So any projects that are in the mix right now, their anticipated ITC is 26%. If this bill passes, they'll get 30. So it's a win for even those that are being installed right now.
So for those projects, Dale, do you know whether or not that is a start date of January 1st, 2022, or is that construction ending or the system being operational in 2022?
I'm going to make an assumption here because I don't know for sure, but the ITC has always been based on the date the system becomes operational. So I would think that it would be for any system that becomes operational, permission to operate after January 1 of 2022. That's my assumption. Could be wrong, but that's what I would assume.
Great. And so, and there's also I understand, it maybe there's your understanding as well, that there's not clarification yet if those additional components of the ITC, the extra 10% for domestic components, et cetera, or the location of the project will apply to both commercial and residential.
Yeah, there is not, from what I could read, Warren, it read to me, the sections of the bill are actually segregated, where it talks about individuals getting the solar tax credit and commercial solar tax credit. Most of the changes are sitting inside the section that talks about section 48, which is the commercial. When you get into the individual tax credit, it really only talks about the 30. So I'm curious to see whether any of them will spill over to the residential side. I don't think they're going to, but that's my hunch. And as far as there was something else I wanted to mention about the tax credit. That's a major change that applies to nonprofits. And that is that nonprofits and local and state government entities will have a direct pay feature where they can actually get the 30% tax credit paid back to them, even though they don't pay taxes. So that's a huge change for those entities, which typically would use a power purchase agreement or some type of a third-party investor to go solar. I think this really simplifies it for them.
That's really fantastic for nonprofits. And then just for our customers to understand, the prevailing wage component as well as the apprenticeship component, those are for systems that are over a megawatt. So for the most part, for homeowners, small business, medium-sized businesses, that doesn't impact your type systems. These are large systems over a megawatt, typically utility scale or industrial size businesses that would be concerned about this. Can you talk a little bit about the 60 days from the time the guidance comes out for anybody who's considering a large project that maybe now might be a time or a sense of urgency to try and avoid some of those requirements?
The way it's going to work, Warren, is the requirements to get to the 30 are going to be waived for anything that started prior to the rule coming out from the IRS. And when the rules come out from the IRS, which could be months out, even after the bill passes. Once the guidelines come out from the IRS, they're going to have another 60 days. And the project just has to commence construction. It just has to start. So any project that starts anytime from January 1 of 2022 until 60 days after the rules come out would qualify for the 30% without having prevailing wage and the apprenticeship program. So that's a really nice feature that would kind of beg people to move if they're really thinking about it on a large system.
And then lastly, I believe this is new, the transferability of the tax credits. Yeah.
So basically, in essence, everybody can take advantage of the tax credit, even if they can't do it on their tax return. The ITC has not been a refundable tax credit. So if you get the ITC on a solar system, you have to owe the tax. In other words, you have to be paying the tax in order to get it back. One of the key rules that's in this bill is that you can sell it. You can sell the credit. I was talking with our accounting firm a little about this. One of the things he mentioned was that they've seen this in other areas where credits are transferable, or you can sell them basically. And he said, usually what happens is somebody will pay you 90 cents on the dollar for your tax credit. Yeah. That's their incentive for buying it. So they buy it at a discount, and then they take the full tax credit, and that delta is what they win. So that's how it kind of works. I don't know what kind of market grows up around that, how easy it becomes to do that, but I would think that would become very common in this area. So yeah, it's a nice feature. Basically, every client becomes eligible to take advantage of the tax credit.
Yeah, and you would think that there's a massive market out there. Anybody who pays taxes could use a discount on the taxes that they owed.
Absolutely. Yep.
And then there's also a change, Dale, if you could talk about this in the carry back and carry forward with the taxes.
Yeah, so the carry back and the carry forward, Warren, primarily the carry back applies to the Section 48. Historically, it has. So I'm going to assume it stays.
Which is commercial.
Yes, which is the commercial projects. So previously, you could carry it back 1 year, and you could carry it forward for, I think, 25. It was a lot. 20, somewhere between 20 and 25. I think it was 25. The new one has you going backwards up to 3 years and going forward up to 22 years. So it's still a 25-year window, but it's 3 years before and 22 years after. Now, here again, this is where the rules will become really important. You know, will that apply to systems that are built in 2022? Will that apply to systems only starting on 1/1/2023? Some of the provisions that I read did have starting dates of 1/1/2023.
Okay.
But I did not read that on this item. So I don't know. I don't know what it's going to be. And that's the kind of thing that we're going to find out further down the road when the IRS comes out with guidelines.
Yeah. Yeah. What about batteries? How are batteries impacted by this?
Batteries, previously, you had to install a battery system. I think it was within 1 year of a solar system in order to take the ITC on a battery system. What they've done here is completely split batteries away from solar. So even if you don't have a solar system, you could install a battery system for your house as a backup or something, and you can take a 30% tax credit. And the purpose of that is to bring more storage onto the grid, which is a known problem with renewables, is how do we have the electricity we need when the renewables are not producing the electricity? So it's definitely aimed at encouraging a lot more storage. And I think it will. I mean, anybody can now put a battery system in and get a 30% tax credit. And
then lastly, it appears that this is going to have some sort of an impact on safe harbor.
Yeah, it's kind of render it obsolete. That's kind of a nice thing, Warren.
Yeah.
We're not going to cry over that. Yeah, the safe harbor was something that was put in place to allow somebody to protect their tax credit at the rate of when they signed the contract. Well, this is a long-term bill, and actually that's maybe one of the nicest features of it is that it gives the industry a long runway to play with. We're not playing with 2 years or 1 year or, you know, some short extension. I know in the industry I came from, we always wanted at least 5-year bills because that's how you plan your capital expenditures as a business and so forth. So a 10-year runway is very, very nice for the business. So, you know, I think, you know, we're going to like that. The safe harbor is going to go away. We don't need to worry about it. The tax credit's the same every year. So it'll be obsolete.
Yeah, provides a lot of certainty for us and for the industry as a whole.
It does. And I should mention, Warren, I'm saying it's obsolete. It's obsolete for 10 years. Actually, right. The way the bill's written, it would step down again to 26 in 2033 and do 22 in 2034. So whether that'll ever happen, we don't know, but we'll see.
For the next 10 years, at least, we won't be dealing with safe harbor.
That's right.
And for those who aren't familiar, the safe harbor is a process in which you could lock in the current ITC at 26% and install the system in a few years from now. Finally, Dale, if somebody is on the fence now, they're ready to pull the trigger and move forward with solar, what would you tell them to do with all of this uncertainty, the potential new bill? Is this a good time? Should they wait? Should they move forward? What should they do?
You know, since we sell solar, we'll say sign the contract as soon as you can. Now, you know, to be really fair, I would say that is a good approach. I mean, the 30% is retroactive, so we don't need to worry about that. There might be an exception somewhere. You know, if you're a brownfield, if you're a nonprofit and we're not sure when the direct pay function kicks in, then maybe you want to wait, but typically it's still going to be based on the install. So sign and we can install it next year. I mean, that's the reality of, you know, some of our backlog anyway. So it's going to be based on when you install the system as we understand it. So I would say, you know, the sooner people sign, the quicker they get out from under renting their electric. And the electric rates have just been going up. And we've seen that since early this year. So yeah, I always say the best time to sign is now.
Absolutely.
I really do. I don't see a disadvantage in most cases. I don't see a disadvantage in signing now and getting the ball rolling.
And there's quite a few advantages, particularly avoiding the rising cost of electric rates, which we've seen go up through our marketplace 30%, 50% in some areas, even more.
Warren, if you don't mind, I'll address one other thing here. Yeah. And that is this bill primarily addresses the demand side of solar. We've had a lot of supply problems in the solar industry over the past year. And we've seen we've seen inflation in solar for the first time in the history of of systems over the last year and a half. And it's been steep. I mean, our systems today are, 25% more than they were a year ago because of that inflation, problems with the supply. And if you think about that and you continue waiting, you don't want to give up your gains in the ITC by waiting 6 months or a year and having the systems go up another 10%. I mean, none of us know exactly what's going to happen. I saw the new inflation numbers come out today, and I think it was 8.5%. Solar has been running higher than that. And even if it's 8.5%, that's still significant, in the scope of things. So,
and if this bill passes in its current form or a similar form, it's only going to increase demand and potentially slow down supply even further, and putting yourself at further risk by waiting.
Yes, I mean, we still have supply chain issues, and if the demand goes up, I don't see how that gets better.
Yeah.
So that pressure of demand outstripping supply is going to just raise prices. That's what it does.
So really, this is a really great time to go solar, especially if you're eligible for the 30% ITC. So it's very helpful, Dale. Let's try and just take a moment. There's so much here in this bill and so much to discuss and so much that's unknown as well, to just summarize what we talked about and what we know. That if the bill were to pass in its current form, that the ITC for most projects under 1 megawatt would increase to 30%. Correct. With the potential for that to go up to 40, 50, or even more percent, depending on some certain criteria. We're not sure if that's true for commercial and residential. The way it looks right now is it's just residential, at least just commercial. I'm sorry, right. Just commercial. The carryback, it went from 1 year to 3 years, is going from 1 year to 3 years, but then can be carried forward for 22 years for a total of 25 years.
And that is also commercial.
And that is also commercial.
Right.
Nonprofits now can get the ITC refunded to them if it were to pass in this, but we're not sure at this point any criteria surrounding that on when construction would need to start or end. And so we're waiting for more details on that piece of the puzzle.
Correct. And that would also include local and state government entities, water and sewer authorities and so forth.
Correct. Projects over a megawatt will have the same benefits as commercial up until 60 days after the IRS guidelines come out. After that point, after the 60 days, they'll be subject to the prevailing wage and apprenticeship requirements in order to get the 30%.
That's correct. And that's going to raise their costs. I don't know how much. I was thinking about that. It's probably, I wouldn't be surprised if prevailing wage costs could increase the price of a system by 5 to 10% pretty easily in a lot of instances. The apprenticeship program, it's going to depend on where companies are at. We actually have one ourselves. Whether it's going to meet their criteria or not, I'm not sure, but we do have that. So we'll have to see. But yeah.
Yep. And then on the battery component, now batteries as a standalone project would qualify for the new ITC at 30%, which they wouldn't have in the past. Would have to be a package with solar. We do know that it will be retroactive for the majority of our customers back until January 1st of 2022, but no clarity on whether that is the start of construction. Typically, it's been when the system was operational.
Right. Correct.
Yeah.
The other thing I saw about batteries, Warren, was that the ITC, the requirements for the ITC for solar are going to match the one for storage, but I don't know how they're going to determine the size as far as prevailing wage and the apprenticeship program. It sounds like that could spill into the storage area, but I don't know. On the solar side, it's based on a megawatt AC. I'm not sure how it's going to be based on the storage side.
That's a good point. That's a good point. And then finally, we talked about whether or not this is a good time to go solar, and it seems as if there's really no disadvantage unless you're a nonprofit or government entity, municipality, or there's a project over. Well, there's an urgency if you've got a project over a megawatt. But other than that, now would be the time to move forward to avoid delays in getting the project installed due to supply chain issues, inflation in the cost of the solar going in, as well as the continued pressure we're seeing on electric prices, all make it an ideal time.
Yeah, and Warren, the reality is a lot of projects, even if they were to sign a contract today, would get installed next year. I mean, yeah. The permitting time, and you think about that, if even if you're a large system, if you were to sign a contract today, I mean, depending when the IRS issues their guidance, if you can get that installation started, doesn't need to be finished, started in that 60-day window after that, that could be a significant savings on a large project for some of our larger commercial customers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, these are interesting times, and this is going to be fun to watch it go through the House and get amended and see what impact that has on the bill, and then actually get implemented and start giving people some tax credits here.
Yeah.
Well, Dale, thank you so much for your time and your insights here. We really appreciate it. Please remember that this is just as the bill stands right now, if it were passed, and it's just our understanding of the bill. There may be information that we haven't seen or don't know about. This is our understanding today on August 10th. So I hope you found this valuable.